Hello, 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 and welcome to Believe. That's BLEAV in Lions right here on the Believe Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, at Cavanagh87, Jack Cavanagh, and we've got a big game coming up this weekend. And as a member of One Pride, you should truly be happy right now because Super Bowl 56 is quite literally the best case scenario for the Detroit Lions. Either way, think about it this way. Scenario one, Matthew Stafford gets the most well-deserved Super Bowl in the history of the NFL. And I won't pretend that I'm not a little hurt inside my heart. That is not with the Detroit Lions, but you have to be happy if Matthew Stafford gets that well-deserved ring. Because Matthew Stafford deserves a Super Bowl for working his butt off for years and getting absolutely zero respect from the national media. And Aaron Donald deserves a Super Bowl too for being the best defensive player the NFL has seen since Lawrence Taylor. And Eric Weddle deserves a Super Bowl too for being one of the most consistent safeties in the NFL for years with the Chargers and the Ravens and the Rams, and then taking a year off of football only to come out of retirement for another playoff run. Odell Beckham deserves a Super Bowl too after he was wrongfully labeled a cancer by the media, by New York City, and by Cleveland. Jalen Ramsey deserves a Super Bowl for much the same reason after Jacksonville tried to ruin his reputation and call him selfish and greedy. Andrew Whitworth, he deserves a Super Bowl too for playing left tackle at the age of 40 in the NFL. Of course, Cam Akers deserves a Super Bowl for having the most miraculous Achilles comeback in the history of athletics. We also have Johnny Hecker, one of the best punters in the NFL. He deserves a Super Bowl as well. And Cooper Kupp deserves a Super Bowl for being one of the best punters Matthew Stafford, or best receivers that Matthew Stafford has ever had. Except he's not the best because Megatron will always be number one. But the Rams deserve a Super Bowl. And a win for the LA Rams is a win for all football fans. And it's also nice knowing that Brad Holmes helped to build this Rams Super Bowl team as he left LA not 1 year ago. And then there's scenario two, where the Cincinnati Bengals win the Super Bowl and operate as a beacon of hope for the Detroit Lions. Because remember, 2 years ago, the Cincinnati Bengals were coaching the Senior Bowl. They were the worst team in the NFL with the first pick in the draft. 2 years ago, Cincinnati was in the Lions' position. They added Joe Burrow. They added Jamar Chase. The culture in Cincinnati has completely changed from the atmosphere in this team to just a historical willingness to look past discretions that other teams would not sign players for. A Bengals Super Bowl is a win for all football fans. And it's going to be great for us too, because Brad Holmes helped shape Zach Taylor, who worked with Brad Holmes with the Rams. So either way, Brad Holmes had a part in this Super Bowl. The Detroit Lions, they do need to find their Joe Burrow, but with Brad Holmes assembling this roster from the ground up, when the Lions do find their Joe Burrow, they're going to be ready to compete for a Super Bowl in a short matter of time. So who wins this Super Bowl? Does it really matter? Because this is the most likably quarterback face-off in the history of the NFL. But in terms of who am I taking? Well, you know I will be betting on betonline.ag. because the big game is finally here as we hit Super Sunday with the last game of the football season. As always, Bet Online has you covered from odds, scores, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land. Bet Online is the number one spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And it's not just football, because Bet Online's basketball and their hockey and their boxing and UFC odds coverage is the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, Bet Online is your number one wagering destination. So, head to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with your first deposit. Just use our promo code BELIEVE to get started. That's BLEAV. The fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. Bet Online, where the game starts. And when this game starts, of course, with the Bengals as 4-point underdogs, I will be taking Cincinnati to cover the spread. Truly, this game should be a pick 'em. The spread is far too wide on this one. And unfortunately, I am going to have to pick the Cincinnati Bengals and smoking Joe Burrow, the best quarterback in the NFL, to win their first Super Bowl. I know I should be picking Matthew Stafford to win the Super Bowl, but in my heart of hearts, Joe Burrow is just too damn good. Now for the Senior Bowl. Defensive line was easily the most impressive position at the Senior Bowl. Not even close. I'm going to give the edge to the edge rushers, but it's real close. You could give it to the edge rushers. You could give it to the defensive tackles. Everyone here at the Senior Bowl got to look at some premium talent, starting with Jermaine Johnson, the edge rusher for Florida State, working with the Detroit Lions throughout the week. 6'4", 259 pounds. And he was just the biggest story of the week by far. He certified himself as a first round talent. And shout out to @AndrewGolden17, our friend on Believe in Jets, Andrew Golden, for the call, because he knew this was coming. Before he came to Florida State, Jermaine Johnson was a rotational edge for the University of Georgia. Decided, hey, I don't really like being rotational. I want to be the man here. And he was right. Picked up 14 sacks in his first year as a full-time player. And we talked on the offensive podcast about how we're going to get into some of these matchups between the one-on-ones of the offensive linemen and the defensive linemen. And perhaps the biggest one-on-one of the week was Jermaine Johnson versus Kentucky right tackle Darion Canard, best of 3 series. Round 1, I don't know if you saw the video. We saw Jermaine Johnson put Darion Canard butt over tea kettle on a bull rush, just absolutely mauled him and won the rep. After that, Canard woke up, won the final 2 reps, but that kind of raw strength against a mammoth of a man in Darion Canard, an SEC right tackle versus a former SEC defensive lineman, that's what the Senior Bowl is all about. And that is what Jermaine Johnson did all week long. Bad news is, if the Lions don't go edge at 2, Jermaine Johnson is likely out of their picking ability. Jermaine Johnson rose his stock too much at the Senior Bowl this past week. But Still plenty of other talent, especially on this Lions roster. We had Kingsley Enagbare from South Carolina. He was overshadowed by Jermaine Johnson, but everyone was at the Senior Bowl. Absolutely everyone. Enagbare, though, comes in at 6'3", 261, 16 QB hits, and will be in the round one conversation. Could definitely be in play for the Lions at 31 or 32. And Jermaine Johnson ultimately did not play the game because he didn't have to. He dominated that much. Neither did Cameron Thomas, though, the San Diego State edge rusher who suffered a hamstring injury earlier in the week. Missed the final two practices, which is unfortunate for him. But there was one player who benefited significantly in the Senior Bowl itself. Without Jermaine Johnson and without Cameron Thomas, we saw Western Kentucky's Deangelo Malone, a bit of a smaller guy, 6'3", 234 pounds. He absolutely dominated in the game for this Lions defensive line. 1 sack, 1 QB hit, and 5 total pressures on the day. He's a bit small. He'll have to put on some weight, but he has the frame at 6'3" to do so. 37 sacks across 5 years at Western Kentucky. At worst, this is a designated pass rusher earlier in his career who could play a serious impact role in the NFL down the road just off of raw talent. Lions are going to like him. And it seems as though the Lions like Florida's edge rusher, Zach Carter, because he might fly under the radar for a lot of people during this week at the Senior Bowl, but 6'3", 287, that puts him in kind of the edge rusher, 3-tech, 5-tech kind of role. Could play inside, can play outside, and that's what the Lions did with him in the actual game. Aubrey Pleasant, when he was operating as the defensive coordinator, moved Zach Carter all over the defensive line. He had 13 snaps out wide on the end. He had 6 snaps in the 5-tech over the tackle directly. And then he had another 7 snaps lined up as a 3-tech. Zach Carter playing all across this defensive line makes me think that the Lions saw something in him. And don't be surprised if Zach Carter ends up being a mid to late round pick for the Detroit Lions, even though he flew under the radar this week at the Senior Bowl. Not many people talking about him, but it seems as though the Detroit Lions were impressed. And you'll be impressed, too, with NordVPN. Because what's more important than peace of mind? Nothing. And that's what NordVPN is here for. To give you peace of mind while you're online. And with all the threats you face today on the internet, it's more important than ever to be sure that you have the best VPN that you can get. NordVPN is the world's best VPN service, offering the fastest connectivity, most servers, and next-gen encryption to make sure that everything you do online stays secure. Plus, you can use NordVPN on all of your computers and devices, no matter where the operating system. With NordVPN's unlimited bandwidth, you never have to worry about a slow connection, and plans start at under $4 per month. So, grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/believe or use code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV to get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 additional month for free. It's also risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So as for the Jets, really, where do we start with their edge defenders this past week? Boye Mafe is probably the easiest to start with because he was by far the best edge rusher on the week. He came in 6'3", 255, prototypical size for an edge rusher. One-man wrecking crew during the Senior Bowl. 2 sacks, had a forced fumble, had 8 total pressures on just 22 pass rushes. Yeah, on over a third of Boye Mafe's snaps on the defensive line, he was getting after the Lions quarterback. Absolutely insane. He may have played himself into that round 1 conversation if he tests well enough at the combine. Very much in play for the Lions at 31-32. And he's not the only player that helped his stock this past week either. Penn State's Jesse Luketa definitely raised his game as well. The Ottawa-born Canadian man, Jesse Luketa, was really under the radar as a pass rusher with just 1 sack in college at Penn State. And that came this past year. But that's because Penn State really just had him dropping in coverage until 2021. So Luketa comes into the Senior Bowl, weighs in at 6'2", 261 pounds, and showed why he should never be asked to drop in coverage again. Picks up 2 sacks and and a total of 4 pressures during the game. And the performances of Boye Mafe and Jesse Luketa really outshined Tyreke Smith from Ohio State. He was the big name coming into the week, and he didn't disappoint by any stretch of the imagination. He just lost a little bit of ground on his competition. Came in a bit smaller at 6'3", 245, so might have to gain a little bit of weight, or maybe he just goes to a 3-4 defense with a stand-up edge. Had his struggles, though, with Trevor Penning throughout the week. Looked like he wanted to throw down with Penning in practice. Everyone felt that way about Trevor Penning. The nastiness that he showed. We raved about that last episode, and oh boy, Trevor Penning, whoever lands him, they are in for a good player. Tyreke Smith, though, he did pick up a sack during the game, so he showed out well at the Senior Bowl, as did Myjai Sanders from Cincinnati. 6'4", 242. He's another player that might want to gain a little bit of weight, but he's got the profile for it. Helped lead Cincinnati to its first college football playoff with 62 total pressures and 5 sacks for the Bearcats. Didn't record any QB takedowns in the Senior Bowl, but did have 4 pressures, which matched Luketa for second on the Jets defense. Now, of course, a lot of this isn't going to matter because the Lions probably aren't going to take a quarterback at 2. They're probably going to take either Kayvon Thibodeau or Aiden Hutchinson, both edge defenders. They probably don't need another pass rusher on the end because they're going to have rookie number 2. They're going to have the Aquara brothers, Julian, and the rehabbing Romeo. They're going to have Austin Bryant. And they're probably going to have at least one, if not both, of Trey Flowers and Charles Harris. So unfortunately, all of these edge rushers that are going to be in the conversation for the second pick of the Lions' first round or their second round pick, unfortunately, it's not going to be of much relevance to the Detroit Lions, but it was sure fun watching these players this past week. And they probably don't need a nose tackle either, because Aleem McNeil, he looks like a star on the rise. John Pennicini, more than capable as a backup to Aleem McNeil. Seems as though the Lions are set there. It's the 3 to 5 tech position that worries me a bit for Detroit. Because Michael Brockers, very steady veteran. And we're really expecting a massive jump from a healthy Levi on Wuzurike in year 2. But outside of those 2 players, Bruce Hector is the only player signed to the roster right now. So defensive interior is going to be real interesting for the Lions in this draft. And it was real exciting to watch at the Senior Bowl. We'll get things started with, of course, another player that locked himself into the first round. The 3-tech out of the University of Georgia, Devonte Wyatt. Now, there was a bit of worry coming into the Senior Bowl that as a senior and an older player, that Devonte Wyatt may have been so dominant in college simply because he's bigger and stronger than everyone and older than everyone. Those worries were put to bed pretty easily. Came in 6'3", 307 with incredible burst, magnificent quickness. Keep an eye on Devonte Wyatt. If he falls to the end of the first round with the Lions' 31st or 32nd overall pick, Devonte Wyatt would be a magnificent pick for the Detroit Lions. And he was so good that he didn't have to play in the game itself. Knew he had established himself at the top of this class. Unfortunately, the rest of the Lions' defensive tackles this week don't really interest me personally. And it's not because they're bad players by any means. LSU's Farrell Jr. He's going to be a strong defensive tackle, strong nose tackle in the NFL. He was the defensive line practice player of the week for the Lions, as voted for by the Lions offensive line. So 338-pound run stuffer. He picked up 4 tackles in the game. But as we talked about, the Lions don't really need a nose tackle, which is unfortunate because I like Farrell Jr.'s game. And I really hope we don't have to see him in the NFC North. And same with Arkansas's John Ridgeway III, too. 6'4", 327 pounds. I don't want to face against him, but the Lions need 3 techs, 5 techs. Aleem McNeil is an all-pro in the making. And so we also saw Phidarian Mathis from Alabama. He's kind of a tweener at 6'3", 350 or 313 pounds, but when you see an Alabama player at the Senior Bowl, you're expecting them to pop. You want that wow factor from Alabama players. And we just didn't see that from Phidarian Mathis this past week. So, I don't know. Not really something that excites me when the Alabama players can't dominate the best of the best. As for the Jets, though, I loved the interior defensive lineman for the Jets. Travis Jones, Connecticut nose tackle. He's actually the only nose tackle in this draft that really excites me because Travis Jones can play any position on the defensive line. He could play wide end if they really wanted him to. 6'4", 326 pounds. Nobody could block him the entire week. Didn't matter if he was at the nose. Didn't matter if he was at the 3-tech. Didn't matter if it was one-on-one. Didn't matter if it was a double team. You couldn't move Travis Jones off the point. Practice D-line of the week for the Jets. Played exclusively in the B gap at the Senior Bowl. And he picked up a sack, too, for the Jets. So Travis Jones, that is one name that really excites me for the Jets defensive line. And another one, too, Perrion Winfrey. He was a 3-tech out of Oklahoma. Number 1 JUCO recruit a couple years ago. And he kind of got caught up in the Oklahoma defensive line rotation. They only really run with 3 players. They do a lot of slants, and they don't really let their defensive linemen just get after the quarterback. But they let him do it at the Senior Bowl. And his stock definitely rose because of it. Ended up with multiple votes to be the NFL, or from the NFL, to be the practice player of the week. And ended up as the MVP of the game. Picked up 2 sacks and just beat everyone throughout the week in one-on-ones. absolutely unstoppable. If the Lions want to take Perrion Winfrey with the 32nd, 31st, or 34th overall pick, sign me up. I'm fine with that. Fine with Logan Hall as well, the Houston defensive tackle. Now, he's a bit smaller, 6'5", 278. Didn't seem to bother him at the Senior Bowl playing much larger offensive linemen because the man can move. 30 pressures, 7 sacks this past year for Houston. Picked up another 2 pressures for the Jets. So Logan Hall, another name on this Jets defensive line at the Senior Bowl that I would love to see in a Lions uniform. Sadly, another player that really the Lions don't have a need for, Otito Ogbonnia from UCLA. Another nose tackle, another player that dominated all week. 6'3", 326. He's a fire hydrant. He's absolutely immovable. Didn't really play much in the game, but again, nose tackle is not a position of need for the Detroit Lions. We need 3 techs, which lines up inside of in between the guard and the tackle. 5 techs, which lines up up on the guard. Those are the defensive linemen that the Lions need. The players that can get up the field quickly, generate some pressure on the quarterback. That's what we want to see out of Levi Onwuzurike. And that's what we want to see out of one of these defensive linemen that are drafted by the Detroit Lions. So that was a lot. And I know it's a lot to think about with the Super Bowl coming up this weekend. So we'll leave you with that. We will get into the linebackers and the safeties and the cornerbacks next week. We'll recap real quick, though, because threw a lot of information at you. There's a lot of good players that the Lions got to work with one-on-one, and a lot of players that may have just etched themselves in the brains of this Detroit Lions coaching staff as, I got to have this guy. And at edge, I know I'm probably not drafting one with the 32nd, 31st overall pick, the 34th overall pick, because we're probably taking Hutchinson or Thibodeau. But if we don't, if the Lions go with Malik Willis with the 2nd overall pick, Jermaine Johnson will not be there. And I wish he hadn't dominated so much because maybe the Lions could have got him then. But Boye Mafe becomes very attractive with the last pick of the 1st round if the Lions go quarterback. So does Jesse Luketa from Penn State and Kingsley Enagbare from South Carolina. We can take them in the 2nd or the 3rd. It's all fine by me. And then Deangelo Malone, the designated pass rusher from Western Kentucky. Zach Carter, the Florida defensive line that Aaron Glenn and Aubrey Pleasant could move all over the formation. Myjai Sanders, Tyreke Smith, the edge rushers from Cincinnati and Ohio State, respectively. All of these players are worth a 3rd round pick or later for the Detroit Lions. There is so much edge talent in this class. I don't want to say the Lions should pass on Thibodeau or Hutchinson because it's real difficult to pass on an edge talent like that. But if the Lions go with Malik Willis at 2, it becomes a lot easier when you can remember some of the talent that we can get later in the draft, potentially with our 2nd first round pick or with the 34th overall pick of the draft. And even if we don't do that, we're still going to be investing in the pass rush because Devonte Wyatt, the 3 tech from Georgia, if he falls to 31 or 32, love it. He would be the perfect Detroit Lion with Dan Campbell on that defense. Ditto Perrion Winfrey, who maybe is the more realistic target here, but I would love it either way. An explosive pass rusher on the interior would do so much for this Lions defense. You could do that with Travis Jones from University of Connecticut. You could do that with Logan Hall from Houston. All this to say, it's a great time to be a fan of the Detroit Lions because there's talent galore at the Senior Bowl, especially on the defensive line. Matthew Stafford might get a Super Bowl. And if he doesn't, then the Bengals just went from worst to first in 2 years, went from coaching the Senior Bowl to winning the Super Bowl. It's a great time to be a Detroit Lions fan. We'll save the conversation for the linebackers and the cornerbacks and the safeties at the Senior Bowl for next week because we've got a big game coming up this Sunday. I'll be betting on the Bengals. I'll be betting on Bet Online, and I will see you next time.